came back the next day, climbed into the cave, and what did they find? They found huge clay jars.
As well as a treasure trove of documents that we had never seen before.
A 3,476-year-old book discovered in Egypt is turning our understanding of ancient history upside down. Hidden in a desert cave, the Book of Enoch reveals shocking truths about life and death that challenge our modern beliefs. This ancient scroll tells the story of Enoch, a man who, according to legend, never died but was mysteriously taken away by God. Could these messages be warnings for our time? Join us as we uncover how religious leaders banned Enoch for centuries, and why, thanks to this ancient text, he may now be seen as the true savior. Hidden Truths in Desert Caves. This ancient biblical scroll in a desert cave marks the first discovery of its kind in over 60 years. Among these findings is the Book of Enoch.
It expounds on Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4, when the story is begun that the Watchers descended upon earth.
A text lost for over 3,000 years in Egypt. This book contains alarming revelations about early human life, significantly altering our understanding of the world and the concept of life after death. It also provides new insights into the story of Enoch as detailed in the Hebrew Bible. They recently found Book of Enoch offers a rare glimpse into the life of Enoch, one of the more complex characters from the Bible. Enoch is noted for having supposedly avoided death, an achievement shared only by Elijah and Jesus. However, the specifics of how he avoided death remain unclear, as the Bible provides minimal information. Enoch's story is brief but significant. It explains that he was a devoted follower of God, and that on one occasion, God chose to take him away rather than let him die naturally. According to the biblical text, Genesis chapter 5, verse 18, the details of Enoch's departure are scant. He is distinct among others who share similar names, such as Hanok and Hanok, because the Bible mentions his direct lineage. Enoch was born to his father Jared at the age of 162, and later became the father of Methuselah, who is known in the Bible as the oldest man ever, living until the age of 965. After Methuselah's time, the records about Enoch stop abruptly as he is taken away by God. The scant details surrounding the end of Enoch's life, the brief accounts of his existence, and even the significance of his name add layers of importance to his figure, much like other biblical personalities. His name and genealogy indicate his prominence and connections within his community. Despite the Bible dedicating only 3 verses to him, Enoch's name, parentage, and heritage highlight his important role in Hebrew history. He is remembered and respected as much as other notable biblical figures. Enoch is presented as a remarkable figure who, unlike others, did not die but was taken by God. His story stands out due to the scarce details about his life and his unique relationship with the divine. He is named along with other prominent figures like Noah, Abraham, and Moses, and his name, meaning dedicated, reflects his deep commitment to God. While his peers communicated with God, Enoch was described as walking side by side with him. However, beyond the basic facts, the details about Enoch's life remain sparse. He had several children, but only his son Methuselah is frequently mentioned, known as the longest living man in the Bible. While Enoch's devotion to God is celebrated, the specifics of his daily life and deeds are not documented in detail. The recent findings in the Book of Enoch from Egypt suggest that Enoch visited heaven multiple times. According to the text, before one of these paths, he gathered people to teach them about living morally and with integrity, underscoring the importance of following divine guidance. Over 2,000 individuals supposedly witnessed Enoch's ascent to heaven, a claim that adds a legendary layer to his story. Enoch's favored status with God made him both revered and somewhat feared, serving as a direct representation of God's presence among his people. This relationship was unlike the more distant and formal connections other Hebrews had with God. This closeness to the divine contrasted with the relationships that people from neighboring cultures had with their more tangible deities. Additionally, The Book of Enoch recounts an episode involving the Great Flood, similar to other flood narratives, but with unique elements attributed to Enoch. He and his brothers are said to have built an altar where they prayed and presented offerings to God. During one of these offerings, dramatic events unfolded. The altar shook, and a knife appeared in Enoch's hand, signaling his extraordinary connection with God. This book is believed to be one of the first to translate spoken words into written symbols, capturing human thoughts and events on paper. It is attributed to Enoch, or possibly someone in his family. The writings, grouped under titles like Hanok Safar, Hanok, and Ha-Yehudim Rabati Safarot, are divided into 4 parts collectively known as the Book of Enoch. These writings have reshaped our understanding of both spirituality and history. From a Christian theological perspective, the story of Enoch is unique. While common Christian belief holds that Jesus' life and actions were meant to save humanity from sin, and that Elijah was the only one who did not die a natural death, Enoch's tale adds another layer. According to the book, Enoch was taken alive into heaven by God, indicating a special divine favor that has been noted throughout history. The Book of Enoch consists of several complex parts: the Book of Watchers, the Book of Parables of Enoch, the Book of Luminaries, the Book of Dreams, and the Epistles of Enoch. These parts have been thoroughly analyzed and debated by scholars and religious figures, which has led to intense discussions about whether this book should be included in the Bible and how it should be interpreted. Let's explore Ethiopia's deep religious history, the sacred custodians of Ethiopia. Despite these scriptures being said to have divine guidance from the Holy Spirit, many people argue that studying them is pointless because they contradict what most people accept as true. There are concerns that the complex symbols and detailed images in these texts might confuse believers about what they think they know about their faith. However, Ethiopia has been vital in keeping this holy document safe, actively displaying its historical findings. Sitting high on one of its many hills, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church is built from stones carefully carved with ancient writings. With over 45 million followers, this church is not just one of the largest in the world, but also a key holder of Ethiopia's deep cultural past. The country has made many such places available to visitors, hoping to share and preserve its rich cultural heritage. This church contains a collection of old spiritual writings and books found nowhere else. There have been attempts to translate some of these old writings into English, with the goal of creating a complete Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. A major breakthrough in understanding these texts in the Western world came when James Bruce brought back manuscripts of the Book of Enoch from Ethiopia in 1773. These documents helped uncover how early Christianity was heavily influenced by the customs and beliefs of Second Temple Judaism, and how these ideas transformed over time. The discovery of these manuscripts caused a significant excitement among scholars and religious circles in Europe. The most respected translation of these texts was done by R.H. Charles, who brought them from Ethiopia. His work is seen as the most thorough and accurate. Charles didn't just translate the texts. He also broke them down into sections that are easier to understand, explained their importance, and provided insights into Enoch's life. R.H. Charles organized the translation into various sections, including an introduction, insights about the future last days, and detailed descriptions of historical periods. His translation helps readers understand various topics, ranging from the movements of stars and planets to religious teachings and the detailed past of the children of Israel. Joseph Haley argued that the original language of the Book of Enoch was Aramaic, but Charles countered this by stating that both Hebrew and Aramaic were used in its manuscripts. Meanwhile, the Jewish community in Ethiopia holds a belief based on old tales that they are descendants of Enoch. This idea originates from a story in the Old Testament, where King Solomon, a descendant many generations removed from Enoch, received a visit from Queen Sheba. Sheba, impressed by Solomon's lineage and the divine blessings his family seemed to enjoy, brought with her lavish gifts for the king, whom she had never met before. She admired the god worshipped by Solomon's family and showed her appreciation and respect by giving him more gifts than any other monarch of his time. She eventually married Solomon, and according to Ethiopian tradition, became the mother of their first emperor, Menelik I, starting the long-reigning Solomonic dynasty. Academic efforts to pinpoint the exact languages the Jews spoke at the time of Enoch have been complicated. It is speculated that they might have used Aramaic or Ancient Hebrew, and some suggest that understanding Greek could help clarify some translations. Richard Beckham believes that those deeply familiar with Jewish history could play a crucial role in identifying the linguistic roots of these texts, especially if it can be confirmed that these texts date back to the time when the Second Temple was built. When a collection of old writings appeared near the Dead Sea, these documents, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, were hailed as a significant find. They are filled with detailed accounts of how people practiced their religion and lived their daily lives long ago, offering insights into the origins of Christianity and Judaism. Before these scrolls were discovered, many believed that this ancient manuscript, more than 3,000 years old, was just an old book forgotten by rulers and unlikely to offer any new important knowledge. Many hoped it would reveal deep truths that could change our understanding of history, although such expectations were often inflated by scholars like R.H. Charles. He claimed this old book would greatly improve our understanding of ancient religious texts. In the first part of the book, known as the Book of Watchers, the character Enoch explains his view of the universe, discussing the stars, the sun, the changing seasons, and the Earth's landscapes. He also shares his personal spiritual experiences, mentioning the blessings he received and the divine visions he saw. Enoch also talks about strange creatures resulting from unions between fallen angels and human women, which sound more like stories from mythology than historical fact. Following this, Enoch describes 3 moral stories told to him by heavenly beings. Subsequent sections focus on his views of the cosmos, particularly the stars and the universe. The fourth part of the text discusses Enoch's 2 prophetic dreams, which he believed foretold disasters 52 years apart. The final part of the manuscript consists of letters Enoch wrote to his family, where he describes his visions and experiences. These letters try to give a personal angle to his stories, though it's questionable how much historical value they really provide. The 7th chapter of his book, Enoch categorizes angels into 2 groups. The first group consists of the good angels who stayed loyal to God. The second group, known as the Watchers, consists of bad angels who started causing problems and promoting wrong actions among humans. Instead of remaining faithful to God, these disobedient angels chose to follow Satan, who led them. The story also mentions some angels who were punished for committing evil acts that even Satan disapproved of. Next, we discover ancient stories of angels and their impact on Earth, the sinful origins of Nephilim and dark rituals. Chapter 6 of the Book of Enoch shares similarities with Genesis, the Bible's first book. It describes how these rebellious angels became attracted to human women, married them, and had children with them. These children were giants called Nephilim. Additionally, these fallen angels taught humans harmful knowledge through rituals and the use of magic. Aramaic gives these disobedient beings a specific name that links them to evil, goat-like creatures. This idea is somewhat similar to a Jewish tradition involving a scapegoat on Yom Kippur. On this day, a goat carrying the sins of the people is sent off to fall down a mountain. This act symbolizes the people admitting their wrongs and God forgiving them. The term Son of Man, frequently mentioned in religious writings, originates from Hebrew and Aramaic languages. The writings of Enoch generally signify the entire human race. However, it can also focus on a specific group of people who view themselves as distinct or unique. In the Hebrew Bible, the prophet Ezekiel often refers to himself using the term Son of Man. This isn't an indication of any special status. Rather, it highlights that he is merely human, just like everyone else. He was born, lived as any person does, experiencing a full range of emotions and vulnerabilities. This designation is Ezekiel's way of emphasizing that, despite his role as a prophet, he shares the common, everyday experiences of other people. including their challenges and emotional ups and downs. Jesus is also called the Son of Man, a label that stresses his humanity. This title reminds us that Jesus, though a central figure in Christianity, faced the typical hardships of human life, including pain and death. The term conveys a critical aspect of Jesus' life. He was not just a spiritual entity, he was a real person who endured suffering and was destined to die. His role extended beyond his earthly experiences, involving a significant mission believed by Christians to be ordained by God to save his followers. In Enoch's story, a group of rebellious angels are condemned to an eternal life of suffering in a separate heavenly prison. These angels, known as evil watchers, are punished with unending sorrow. Enoch then describes his path through the skies, which he calls the celestial orbit or heavenly circle. This path closely resembles how planets move in our solar system. During his path, Enoch organized the celestial bodies using names from Greek mythology. He placed Kronos at the top, similar to how we see Saturn. Below Kronos, he placed Aphrodite, which represents Venus, followed by Ares for Mars. Then came Zeus, which corresponds to Jupiter, and Hermes, equivalent to Mercury. The last and lowest level he mentions aligns with our moon's path. Enoch uses these names to create a sky map, where each level is linked to a specific planet. In the second book of Enoch, these planets are described as bright, moving lights that circle overhead, which he refers to as the heavenly circle. Interestingly, Enoch divides this celestial area into 3 layers or dimensions, each with a unique name, Soa. He explains that the first layer is similar to our real, physical world, something solid that we can see and touch, filled with recognizable shapes and sizes. He calls this the perceived space. The second dimension is harder to grasp because it exists only in our minds. This is the envisioned space, focusing more on space ideas rather than physical realities. The third dimension is a riddles layer that seems to affect every other space, connecting people, communities, and historical events. During his celestial exploration, Enoch tells of being led by angels to meet the elders in charge of the stars. These elders showed him 200 angels who managed the stars and their movements through the sky. These angels glide through space effortlessly, using their wings to travel around the planets. Enoch's path also includes a visit to the storerooms of snow and ice, guarded by an angel tasked with keeping these cold treasures safe. Like a guide in heaven, Enoch was allowed to explore the storerooms of clouds and dew under the supervision of an angel in charge of these celestial supplies. He witnessed firsthand how these storerooms operate, opening and closing at precise times. Enoch took it upon himself during his travels through various heavenly domains to explain how God intricately connects everything from our world to the skies above. He shared these insights, believing he offered valuable new perspectives that could fundamentally change how we view life, death, and the afterlife. Turning our focus to ancient Egypt, where death was merely the start of more challenges, we find the Book of Two Ways. In this context, the deceased were plunged into a spiritual path, aiming to reach Rostau, the revered realm of Osiris, the deity in charge of overseeing the trials of the afterlife. To navigate this complex, the Egyptians relied on what is considered one of the first illustrated manuals, the Book of Two Ways. This guide offered maps for 2 paths to Rostau, one by land and another by water, each path laden with its own challenges, necessitating a guide for those who ventured there. This early example of an illustrated guide to the Egyptian underworld might also be one of the oldest of its kind, with recent archaeological finds revealing a copy that is around 4,000 years old. This discovery extends the timeline of ancient literary history even further. Highlighted in a scholarly article, this find demonstrates the extensive efforts ancient Egyptians made to understand and conceptualize their mortality, showcasing their deep engagement with life's various stages. Now, we delve into the riddles of the afterlife in ancient Egypt. The Book of Two Ways, Guiding the Dead in Ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the wealthy and powerful didn't just get buried with simple grave markers. Instead, their coffins were elaborate, serving both as their final resting place and as a guide to the afterlife. Consider the example of a prominent woman named Ankh. Her coffin wasn't just any coffin, it was inscribed with important texts and images on the inside, including parts of the Book of Two Ways, all carved into decaying cedar wood panels. These texts were not from any time, but specifically from the era of Pharaoh Mentuhotep II, who ruled until about 2010 BC. Such coffin texts were exclusive, intended only for those deemed important enough to deserve a direct path to the realm of the gods after death. Interestingly, although Ankh was a woman, the inscriptions referred to her as a man. This was because, in those times, the process of rebirth was thought to be more effectively achieved by following the examples of male gods like Osiris. The inscriptions suggest that Ankh's afterlife path was fraught with challenges. She would have had to navigate through dangerous obstacles, such as encircling fires and encounters with demons and spirits. She also faced more commonplace dangers like fire. Her only defense against these threats were spells, which she was expected to know and be able to cast. These spells were accompanied by detailed instructions, essentially serving as a guide for how to use them correctly. The illustrations that came with these texts were complex and filled with cryptic symbols and figures, intertwined with lines that were hard to follow. Some experts believe that these images might have been intended for use in rituals conducted during life, possibly even in ceremonies aimed at bringing gods or deceased humans back to life. Regardless of their original purpose, these texts affirmed the promise of rebirth, either in this world or in another, and were thus a standard inclusion in the tombs of ancient Egyptians. Between 1946 and 1956, a significant discovery was made in the Qumran caves near Ain Feshka in the West Bank, close to the northern shore of the Dead Sea. This discovery included ancient Jewish writings known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. These texts date back to a period ranging from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. They consist of the oldest known versions of entire books that were later included in the biblical canons. Alongside these, there were additional religious writings from that era that did not make it into the main religious texts and are known as deuterocanonical. In the area where these texts were found, researchers unearthed thousands of pieces of parchment, which are the remains of what were once larger documents. These documents have been damaged over centuries either by natural processes or by people. While most of these pieces are just small bits with little text on them, there are a few that have survived almost whole. In fact, fewer than 12 of these nearly complete manuscripts were found among those discovered in the caves. Researchers have identified 981 different manuscripts from these findings, collected during the years 1946, 1947, and 1956 from 11 different caves. These caves were located near a historic Jewish settlement at the site known as Khirbet Qumran, which is in the eastern Judean desert of the West Bank, approximately 1.5 kilometers west from the Dead Sea's northwestern shore. Originally, these scrolls were believed to have been written by a group known as the Essenes, a Jewish sect from that time. However, more recent studies suggest that other groups, including priests from Jerusalem known as Zadokites, or possibly other lesser-known Jewish groups, might have been responsible for writing these scrolls. The majority of these manuscripts are written in Hebrew and a good portion in Aramaic. Some regional dialects, like Nabatean, are also represented, and a few of the texts are in Greek. From wider explorations in the Judean desert, other writings have been found in Latin from a place called Mada, and in Arabic from a location known as Khirbet al-Mafjar. Most scholars agree that these writings were created sometime between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE. However, other documents from nearby sites date back as early as the 8th century BCE and forward to the 11th century CE. Archaeologists have made several findings by examining old artifacts, which often just support existing knowledge rather than uncovering new, earth-shattering facts. Take, for example, the discovery of a pyramid belonging to an unknown queen found near the tomb of King Tut. A century after King Tut's burial site was opened, more coffins, mummies, and a network of underground tunnels were found along with this queen's pyramid. The queen, named Neith, is not mentioned in any historical texts. This absence leaves a big gap in understanding her time as a ruler. Zahi Hawass, a notable Egyptologist and Egypt's former state minister for antiquities, emphasized that there's still much to learn about her. This suggests that archaeologists will need to continue their excavations to gather more information. Further south of Cairo, about 20 miles away, is Saqqara, where new finds have been made. Here, archaeologists discovered coffins and mummies believed to be associated with King Tutankhamun's most trusted advisors and generals. King Tutankhamun, who is often just called King Tut, was a young ruler from 1333 BCE to 1323 BCE. His untouched tomb, found in 1922, became famous worldwide and sparked a keen interest in Egyptian relics. Join us as we uncover the hiddens held by Egypt's ancient tombs. The gold-wrapped mummy of Hatshepsut. During this recent excavation, researchers also investigated a nearby pyramid that was built for Teti, the first king of Egypt's 6th dynasty. Teti became a godlike figure in the later New Kingdom, and as a result, many wanted their final resting places near his pyramid. Close to Teti's pyramid, researchers found nearly 300 coffins, which were remarkably well preserved, unlike most burials from earlier or later periods typically found in this area. The New Kingdom, sometimes called the Egyptian Empire period, lasted from the 16th to the 11th century BCE. About a month before this year's winter solstice on December 21st, researchers from Spain's University of Malaga and the University of Jaén shared their discovery of what they claimed to be Egypt's oldest tomb, positioned to face the sunrise on the winter solstice. This tomb was meant to capture sunlight on the year's shortest day, highlighting an intended statue of a governor from Elephantine, who was in power towards the end of Egypt's 12th dynasty around 1830 BCE. A recent publication in the journal Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry revealed how the team used simple tools, a 3-foot pole, a square, and some ropes to determine the exact layout of the chapel and where to place the governor's statue. By using these simple methods, they managed to align the tomb perfectly with the cycle of the sun, which the Egyptians connected with themes of rebirth and starting anew. The winter solstice marked the beginning of longer days, symbolizing the sun overcoming darkness. This event was a stark contrast to the summer solstice, which signaled the start of the Nile's flooding each year, another key time for renewal and hope, particularly for the deceased governor. The tomb, interestingly marked as number 33, is believed to have been built for Governor Hekaib. Its excavation was carried out over 10 years, from 2008 to 2018. This finding was presented as evidence of the ancient Egyptians' advanced skills in both building and astronomy. They were able to precisely calculate the sun's path to design their structures accordingly. Although this tomb, located at Kubet el Hawa, is recognized as the oldest found with such features, it is not the only example of this type of architectural and astronomical accuracy. In the Dominican Republic, Dr. Martinez and her team from the University of Santo Domingo discovered a tunnel buried 43 feet beneath the surface. The tunnel stretches over 4,281 feet through sandstone and is about 6 feet in height. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities noted its resemblance to the ancient Eupalinos Tunnel from Greece, an aqueduct built in the 6th century BCE on the island of Samos. Named the Taposiris Magna Tunnel, parts of it are underwater, and its original use is still not clear. Dr. Martinez thinks that this tunnel might help in her long-running 18-year search for the lost burial site of Cleopatra. Previous digs in the area have unearthed hints about Cleopatra, who was the last ruler of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, reigning from 51 BCE until her death in 30 BCE. Researchers believe the site was dedicated to the god Osiris and his wife, Queen Isis. Cleopatra is often linked with Isis, and this connection is seen in various artifacts found at the site, including coins bearing the images of Cleopatra and Alexander the Great, and small statues of Isis. Meanwhile, at the Saqqara necropolis near Cairo, another team recently found a 4,300-year-old mummy of a man named Hekasheps, wrapped in gold. This find is significant because of its great age and excellent condition. Discovered in January 2023 inside a limestone sarcophagus in a burial shaft, it is considered one of the oldest and best-preserved mummies uncovered so far. This mummy is very important for scholars studying the early periods of Egyptian history. Not long ago, we knew very little about the daily lives or health of ancient Egyptians. However, recent discoveries in a burial site have provided new information. 2 embalming areas and graves from about 2,400 years ago have been found. These sites are filled with tools such as stone beds, clay pots, and old instruments used for mummifying the dead. Additionally, 2 important graves were unearthed. One of Nahas-Ba, a priest from the 5th dynasty, and another of Men-Kaber, a priest from a later period. The walls of these graves are decorated with images that show people farming, hunting, and engaging in daily activities. This particular burial ground has become a center for important finds. A joint team from the Netherlands and Italy, supported by Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, discovered a tomb complex that dates back 3,200 years to the reign of Ramses II. This complex includes a beautifully designed temple with an elaborate entrance, a courtyard, and passageways that lead to underground burial chambers and 3 ornate chapels. Inside this impressive tomb, archaeologists found carvings of Panessi and his wife, Bia, performing religious rituals. These carvings suggest that Panessi held a significant role in the Temple of Amen and offer insights into their religious practices and social hierarchy at the time. There is also a depiction of another priest named Pase, dressed in a leopard skin, indicating his status, though likely lower than Panesi's. Elsewhere, at Heliopolis, historically known as the City of the Sun, researchers from Liège University have been excavating the remains of the Sun Temple. They discovered floors made of white ash and structures made of mud brick. They also found ancient stonework, parts of a possible statue of Ramses II, and other artifacts. These findings help to enhance our understanding of one of the oldest cities in Egypt and its worship of the sun god, Atum. What do these discoveries reveal about the power dynamics and religious practices of ancient Egypt? Like, comment, and subscribe for more.